What's up everyone, my name is Will from Ghost Hack, and today I'm going to show you how to make this really high kind of string violin sound in Serum, and this is what it sounds like. Also, if you play it down really low, it kind of sounds like a brass instrument almost. This is actually not a complex sound at all. It can be very difficult to make really organic sounding things inside of Serum and make it sound not too digital. But there is some techniques here that I really want to stress, and I'll get to that. It's mainly in the effects section, but what we want to start out is just using a saw wave. Synth strings sound kind of like a saw wave in general, so using a saw wave both for oscillator A and B kind of makes sense here. What we're going to do first is we have the saw wave. You can ignore the basic shapes too. It just starts you out with a saw wave, so just keep that. I have the unison on 9, and I brought the detune up to 13, so we're getting a nice kind of spread out sound. Also, I made this LFO1 right here on 4 bars. It's very long. I flipped it on envelope, so it's not repeating, but I just created this kind of down shape, which this volume movement is going to kind of emulate what it would sound like if you had like a string, like a hit or something like that with violins. And it's this motion that kind of causes it to sound organic. So this is going to be applied fully on the level, just 0 to 100%. And when we play it really high, we got this sound. And it does sound very synthy. There isn't really anything much organic about that, but we can tell that we're heading kind of in the right direction. So now that we've done that, we can just flip on oscillator B, and this is also going to be just a normal saw wave, the default, and we're going to bring it down 1 octave, and we're going to do almost the same thing. I didn't bring the unison up to 9. This time I just brought it up to 5. It might be a little easier on your CPU. But the detune is also very high at 0.16 right here, which is pretty much the same. That was at 0.13, just around that area. And I'm doing the same thing with the level, except I'm not bringing it up 100% with the LFO. Instead, I'm only bringing it up 80, because I didn't want this one to be too strong. This is just going to be kind of a low layer to kind of back it up and make it sound like there's more instruments playing at once, as opposed to just like one string instrument. So now you can hear the sound that we have. Still very synthy, but now we have a little more body to it. Also, what I did, this is just a small thing, doesn't affect the sound much. I flipped on a filter, which is the MG Low 6, which is like the flattest roll off you can get. You see, if I bring the cutoff down, it's just a really, really subtle roll off. It's not very sharp at all. But all I wanted to do is cut off like some very, very high end up here, because it can get kind of harsh. And when you have a lot of harsh, really piercing high end, it doesn't really sound very natural, because a violin does kind of roll off. So there isn't really too much difference, but it does affect the sound. After that, this is where the real magic happens, in the effects section. First up, we're just going to add a distortion. This is just a soft clip distortion all the way. This is going to kind of mess it up a little bit, but it's going to make it more powerful. It's hard to hear the actual distortion itself, but what we can hear is the sound getting stronger and more powerful. This is what we want going into the reverb, because the reverb is doing some really, really key stuff here. I never really do stuff like this with the reverb, but this is what makes it sound organic and natural. I have it on a plate reverb, and you want the mix all the way up 100%. You don't want any of the dry sound coming through. I made sure to turn the pre-delay down, and I brought the size to a comfortable around like 26%. The size is really something you can play around with, because this is going to kind of control the release of the violin sound that you have. I brought the low cut up to 18% just so it's not getting any weird low frequencies, and make sure to bring the high cut all the way up. You don't want to cut any of the high end. You want all the high end to come out in the reverb. I leave the damping, you can just leave it how it is, and the width is 100%. You don't want a mono sound, you want the width to be all the way. So now with these reverb settings, these unique reverb settings, we get this. Which this is the violin sound that we had in the beginning, having just that really, really dry, really short plate reverb really just makes it sound that much more organic, makes it sound like kind of an assembly of violins playing at the same time. It sounds much more natural, and it just generally sounds a lot smoother and a lot easier on your ear. So after that, we're going to add a chorus. Again, this doesn't do much. This is just the typical chorus that I add to most sounds. I have a low rate as well as delay 1 and delay 2 pretty dang low. I have the depth about here, and I don't want a lot of feedback at all. But an important thing is that the high pass filter is turned on. It turns from low pass to a high pass, and I brought it up so it's not coursing any of the lows, and I just mixed that in. And again, you can't really hear the difference because the reverb is already so spread. I like to just add this as a layer in the background to kind of fill things out. And the last thing I'm going to do is actually put on a phaser. And what I'm doing here is I'm doing the classic thing that I do to make kind of basses more powerful. Usually this is what I do. I turn the rate down, the depth down, and the frequency down. Make sure the feedback isn't too high, but normally you get a pretty harsh sound with the mix all the way up. I didn't want all of that harshness, I just wanted a little bit of that kind of bite that the phaser gives it. So I mixed it in about around 50%, just anywhere around there. And that is how I made kind of a high string sound inside of Serum. Again, if you play it down low, it sounds kind of like a brass instrument. Alright, so that wraps up this tutorial. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found this interesting. I hope you learned a thing or two. And I highly recommend that you would kind of mess around with other sounds, not just saw waves, maybe other waveforms going through the reverb and, kind of using these techniques. You can get some really organic instrument sounds and you can just make some really, really cool stuff. So I recommend messing around with these techniques. Thank you for dropping a like on this video. Thank you for subscribing and thank you for all the support. And I will see you in the next video. Happy producing.